Welcome to Your Vote, YourTV's extensive coverage of the 2022 provincial election. I'm Mark Rockburn, and over the next half hour, we'll introduce you to the Northumberland-Peterborough South Liberal Party candidate, Jeff Kawzenuk, who is an educator in this area for over 35 years, and many people probably know you as Principal K from either CDCI West or down most recently. His last posting was in Colborne at ENS. So Jeff, or sorry, Brighton at ENS, correct? Yes, so I'm sorry about getting that incorrect. Jeff, thanks for coming into the YourTV studio and spending the next half hour with us to be able to get your name out there, introduce you to the electorate, because certainly this riding has changed over the last 10 years. And before we get into who you are, I just thought I'd start with the fact that many people may know you, but there's so many influx of so many new people into this riding. The way this riding and where people are come from has certainly changed over the last number of years.
Yeah, it certainly has. Thank you very much, Mark, for having me this morning. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, the riding has grown a lot. My partner Maureen and I have been now in Northumberland County for getting on close to 40 years. It's a long time. It's funny because, you know, we made the decision a long time ago that we loved this area, and we wanted to build a home. We wanted to raise our family, and we did all of those things. And we ended up settling in Colborne. At the time, I had got my very first teaching job at the East Collegiate in Coburg. I loved it there. We began looking for property in Port Hope and Coburg and Colborne, and somehow we found this beautiful little place in Colborne and settled there and fell in love with the village of Colborne. And we raised our 3 children. They attended local public schools, but at the same time, they were really involved in sports and the arts and music. So I think I've probably traveled the 401 as much as most truck drivers these days, and it was great. And our children have gone on, and now Maureen and I, are looking to eventually retire here, and it's exciting. But you're right, the communities have grown. They've grown leaps and bounds. And every community, whether it be Port Hope or Brighton or Norwood, they all have their issues, which makes it such a unique place.
Certainly is a unique place, and I've been here for about 15 years, and it's certainly changed since I came here 15 years ago, how much the communities have grown, and all communities, when we talk about it, you think about Brighton and Colborne, small little communities, but now when you drive through those communities now, the expansion, which causes issues, which causes pressures on other things, and we'll get into those a little bit more. But so let's talk just a little bit more about you. You explained yourself, you explained your family, but you're someone that when you came, you certainly leapt right into being part of these communities, either through teaching, either through outside curricular activities. Making notes. You co-founded the Journey of Hope, which has raised $250,000 for local charities. Many trips to Africa as well, where you've taken students there as well. Founder of the June Leadership Program as well as the Kawartha Wrestling Club. So you certainly made yourself part of the community right away.
I think that's what's so special about Northumberland-Peterborough South, is there's so many ways to get connected. I think from the time I was very, very young, I wanted to be a teacher. And, I had a long, wonderful career in education. There was never a day when I woke up and I didn't want to go to school. And, I think about that a lot. I think about that for my children. I hope that they will, one day be invested into a career that brings them the same joy that I got. But I loved it. And then for me, just getting involved in many, many things, I think my life has gone through these various stages from, actively be involved in coaching, and I love those moments. And I had opportunities with wonderful student athletes, and I think I learned more from them than they probably learned from me. And then all kinds of fundraisers and my time at OELC, working with leadership groups and just some exceptional students. Probably the highlight, though, I think, of my educational career was taking students to the developing world. It's easy to sit back and tell the story, but when students see it and live it, and then they come back and share those stories, it's much more meaningful.
Absolutely. It's one thing to be able for you to relay that information and try to spur children on and students on by, saying how lucky you are for the privileges that we have. But really that firsthand experience certainly is what opens their eyes up more. So what made you, or what attracted you to want to get into that side of, you yourself getting involved and trying to make, and then expanding that to taking students with you as well?
Well, that's an interesting question, and it would come back to my good friend Steve Truelove. Steve had made his very first trip to Tanzania. He was touched by that experience, and when he returned, he wanted to make this video of the photos and videos he had. Steve is not a real techie kind of guy. He'd be the first to say that. At the time, my son, I think, was in grade 10. And my son Jesse was very much involved in creating videos. So Steve came to my house, and we'd always been very close and good friends. We had taught together for many years at the East, and then I was Steve's VP at one point. So we were very close, and I watched Steve and Jesse spend basically 3 days doing this video. And Steve said, "You have to come," and then from there, I decided, I'll go on one of those trips with you, Steve, and thinking it would just be one trip. And then you fast forward to 12 trips later. But I remember one night, Steve and I had been working on a project in Tanzania when it was just adults. And we came back, and I said to Steve, we have to bring students. Like, this is just, it's too powerful not to bring students and not have them see what is happening. And then we went back to the school board, and we convinced the trustees and the director that we wanted to bring students to the developing world where, the HIV, AIDS, the virus and pandemic was happening. And somehow we convinced them. And I think we convinced them solely on our passion to do good work. And that's how that happened. And it was remarkable. Watching the students make a difference, was incredible. And we've been continuing. Our last trip was 2020, just before the pandemic. We got back in February, and of course the pandemic broke in March. And things have been happening. So we've continued to do some work there and see some of our projects happen.
You talk about that passion, and now your passion is this running as a provincial candidate for the riding of Northumberland-Peterborough South under the Liberal banner, and we'll get to that. So what made you spurred from being a teacher for an education and for 35 years being in charge of a principal at different high schools, to then saying, let's get into this side, possibly a second career, and being a candidate in this election?
Well, I don't have to remind everyone I'm not a career politician. I was a longtime educator. I received some phone calls. Once Lou had made the decision that he was going to step away from politics, I had received some phone calls from some close friends who suggested that maybe I should consider running. And certainly our family had many chats about that. And then I just thought that I can't think of a better way that I can continue to serve. And that's always been very important to me. And then it got to one of those points where I thought, is this something I might regret if I don't do it? And I think that I know this area well. I certainly have a passion for Northumberland-Peterborough South. And as I said, I know it incredibly well. Like most parents, I think our children have played in every single arena. I think, you know, we've been invested in all of the arts programs along the lakeshore, music and whatnot. And, you know, I truly believe in the saying that it takes a community to raise a family. And so many people have contributed to the success of our children that it would be nice if I could do something in return.
You chose the Liberal Party. Why the Liberal Party?
Well, I've always been a long-time Liberal. There's no question about that. And I would say that, you know, the Liberal Party has not been perfect. There are some things that I've disagreed with over my time as a Liberal, and I think that anyone realistically would say that about their own party. I like what the Liberals stand for. I truly do, and I think that they put people first. I think right now I would look at us as the new provincial Liberal Party. We were decimated in the last election, and you know, sometimes I think in politics that needs to happen, and it's a little bit of a wake-up call. And we won't be the last party that will happen to, and we haven't been the first. I like what Stephen is standing for, and I like how Stephen collaborates with everyone. We have been doing a tremendous amount of listening to stakeholders, and that listening goes into building the policies.
You, as a candidate here for the riding of Northumberland-Peterborough South, unlike other parties, you had to face a nomination period where
Yes.
You went through a local candidate versus a local candidate, Nicole Beattie, who in her own has done very well at the municipal level, and you know, the last municipal election topped the polls here in Cobourg. So, talk about going through that process, and you know, was that kind of like a precursor to where we are now with this election? The fact that you know you had to win the nomination, and now you're looking to win this seat.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Nicole Beattie is a wonderful person. You know, I have the utmost respect for Nicole, and certainly she and I have talked on a number of occasions since the nomination. If I had not have won the nomination, Nicole would have made an excellent candidate. And I would suspect that this is the beginning of her political career, because she's excellent. I think it was good to go through the nomination process. It allowed us to build our base of volunteers. It allowed us to learn. It allowed us to form our team. And I cannot imagine if I didn't go through that, if I would be as far as I believe I am right now. But it was an interesting process, and it was a good introduction for me into politics.
Jeff, we're up on break. Okay. When we come back, we're still got lots more to talk about. We're going to talk about what your vision and philosophy is for this riding of Northumberland-Peterborough South. And obviously, we'll get into talking what do you see as the major issues, not only for the province, but also this riding, because of the fact that, as we talked beforehand, a lot of the times, sometimes they are different. A lot of times they're the same, but a lot of times they're different as well.
Thanks.
You're watching Your Vote. I'm Mark Rockburn. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Your Vote, YourTV's extensive coverage of the 2022 Ontario provincial election. I'm Mark Rockburn. Joining me in the YourTV studios is the Liberal candidate for the riding of Northumberland-Peterborough South, Jeff Kawzenuk. Sorry, and I apologize for that. And we rehearsed it numerous times, and I knew as soon as we started. So let's get into the beef of the things. You know, we talked about who you are, why you're running and such. What do you see as the issue? Let's go first for this riding and what you're hearing at the door, because you know you've been out campaigning now for almost 6 months or more. So what are you hearing at the door?
Great question. if I was to summarize the top three things, and believe me, I think there are many issues. In fact, before I jump into that, Mark, probably way back in early summer, we had a caucus meeting with Stephen Del Duca, and Stephen identified 11 issues or priorities for the upcoming election. And then Stephen assigned all caucus members to these issues, where for the better part of 3 months, we just contacted stakeholders, and literally hundreds upon hundreds of stakeholders, where we did a lot of listening. I was fortunate to be on two of those policy squads, education being one, which makes sense, and rural Ontario, which again is part of our riding, and that was very, very important to me. So we gathered just a ton of information, and all of that information was then shared with OLP, the Ontario Liberal Party, and from there we are launching some of our policy platforms. To take that now and talk about things at the door, what I'm hearing loud and clear is healthcare. Healthcare would be the number one thing. I think that people are very concerned that the Doug Ford government is looking to privatize healthcare, and the Doug Ford government has come out on numerous occasions and led the people to believe that that is a direction he wants to head in. Healthcare has been underfunded throughout the pandemic. Our nurses and our healthcare professionals are struggling, and I have done a number of roundtable conversations with healthcare professionals, and it's tough to hear from them. I think people across our riding and within the province know that our healthcare professionals are struggling, but when you listen to them one-on-one, it's tough. They're going through some very, very tough things. There is a true shortage of nurses. Nurses feel that they aren't respected. I think that things like Bill 124, where they're going to get a 1% raise at this particular time, is insulting, and I think that certainly needs to be repealed. But healthcare is a major, major concern. And I do want to point out that there was no politician, whether they're conservative or for the Green Party or a Liberal, that would have been prepared for the COVID pandemic. This was something new. We have never been through anything like this. Having said that, I think along the way we learn things. And when we learn something and we fail to react, then that deserves criticism. And there were a few things. And the second thing I am hearing loud and clear at the doors is long-term care. And long-term care is a huge, huge issue. And I think that was Doug Ford's, I think it was his biggest failure. The numbers speak for themselves. There were 25,000 people in long-term care that developed COVID. There were 4,500 deaths. And of those deaths, 5 times the death rate happened in for-profit long-term care facilities. And we can do better. We have to do better. If I learned anything from my trips to Africa, I can tell you this: there are no long-term care facilities for the elderly in the developing world. There are no retirement villages in Africa. But elders are respected. And even if they have no family, the community rallies together and they look after our seniors. And somehow we've got away from that. And I do believe we need a new mindset around senior care. I think some of the things that Stephen Del Duca and the Liberal Party have put forth are excellent ideas. They're new, they're refreshing. But we should not be making money on the backs of our seniors. And I think that's where it starts. So I think I have certainly been hearing that loud and clear. I think that in many cases, because so many people know me when I'm at the door, they do bring up education, and particularly parents who have children in the system right now. So education would be another one that I think is important, and truly we need a post-pandemic plan for education. We have seen that a number of students have fallen behind. And there are going to be gaps in their education. And if we don't have a plan to address that, that will continue to happen. So I think that the Liberal platform is solid. It starts with small classes to allow teachers to get students caught up.
Switching gears here a little bit, when you get elected, what do you see or what do you want to do that would be the impact or something that would impact this riding specifically? You know, not government, not a province-wide, but this riding specifically.
I think there has to be strong partnerships with municipalities. And I think that's where we continue that listening. What I have found that it doesn't matter if I'm in Port Hope, they have their issues and their concerns. You know, I hear about Wesleyville a lot right now and the land transfer. That is a big one in Port Hope. When I'm in Cobourg, I hear different things. I think certainly Brookside, the Brookside land, I've been hearing a lot about that and what we can be doing with that. I still hear all of the other things around healthcare and education, and I think that plays a really important role. There are different issues out in Brighton, there are different issues in Norwood. So I think that we need, again, a solid plan where we work with municipalities and we get things done. And we don't get things done just before an election. It has to start right from the get-go.
You're in a riding where you look at major municipalities such as Cobourg and Port Hope. Here, you drive an hour and you get into the small communities of Campbellford, Warkworth, and then you come up a little bit and you have the small towns of Roseneath, and then along the waterline we have mid-sized communities. There's a big, and we can't forget our friends out in Alderville as well. So it's certainly a diverse to try to get your head grasped around. And, I always talk to MPPs or MPs, especially MPPs, where you go, you're in Toronto and you have a square block and you have your riding. Here you're an hour from one side to the other with so many different issues in each municipality.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we did when we were looking at our strategy for the upcoming election, we talked about opening multiple offices and we had long discussions about that, and in the end we thought that wasn't a really good use of our funds. So we've got this RV and we call it our mobile office, and we are traveling every day in the RV with a team there, and then we have the team back at the Cobourg office as well. But we're trying to get out and we are meeting with as many people as we can in a day. And we're doing lots and lots of listening, and we're sharing lots of our platform. And I must say that the response has been incredibly positive. Yeah.
I was going to say, how the greeting, because you're in a situation where current MP David Piccini was when he got elected, where he had a year head start to get out, to get his name out there, to get knocking on the doors, to be able to get people to know who he is, and we saw what happened there. So obviously, and now he's going to have to run the way Lou did on his record over the last number of years. So have you felt that getting out there and getting that head start has been good for Jeff?
It's been great. And let me say this: we're not taking anything for granted. And maybe this is part of my background in athletics. You have to work hard. And there's training and there's time that has to put in. We're not taking anything for granted. We're up in the morning early. We have a plan. We attack that plan and we dive in. We are working very, very hard, and that's going to be no different when I become MPP. I will continue to work hard, and I think that my record of hard work is pretty clear. Yeah, but the response has been very, very positive. Again, we just stick to the plan and go.
We have about a couple of minutes left here, and I'll leave it with you to finish this off on what you would like to leave as a lasting memory with us today, to the electorate, to the voters in Northumberland-Peterborough South.
Well, I think what I'd like to say is today I zeroed in on 3 topics. I talked a little bit about healthcare, I talked about long-term care, and I talked about education. But I clearly understand that there are so many other important issues. Affordable housing is so critical. And I have 3 children, and they're in their 30s, early 30s and 20s, and I worry about, the possibility, will they own a home one day? And that's probably no different than a lot of other parents out there. I also worry about affordable housing for everyone. And so I think that is certainly something that is imperative and that we find solutions for. I think climate change and our environment, it's critical. And all of the schools that I had worked at, I was fortunate to have committed teachers who knew far more about this than I could ever imagine. And they were inspirational to the students. But this is something that we have to get a handle on, and get a handle on quickly. I believe social justice. It is so important. And I would also say this, I think that we're living in some very difficult times. And somehow we do have to unite Canada, and we have to unite Ontario. There are angry people, and maybe rightly so, but we need to certainly do listening and listen to everyone, and then move forward for really solid solutions on what Ontario will look like in the future.
You've been watching Your Vote. I'm Mark Rockburn. We'll see you next time.